Do you ever feel like you're living with a roommate instead of the person you fell in love with? Like there's this quiet, invisible space growing between you, and the easy conversations you used to have now feel, well, forced? If that sounds familiar, you're not imagining it, and you're definitely not alone. That feeling is often the first sign of emotional detachment. We're going to talk about the subtle warning signs that your connection might be fading, and more importantly, what you can do right now to start bridging that gap before it gets too wide. This isn't about pointing fingers. Emotional detachment is rarely a conscious choice. It's usually a slow drift that happens when life gets busy, or stress piles up, or even when unspoken hurts create a divide. It's the feeling of being lonely, even when you're in the same room. You probably remember a time when you shared every little detail of your day, when laughter came easily, and when you felt truly seen by your partner, right? But now, the silence at the dinner table feels heavier than words ever could. The good news, though? Just noticing this drift is the first, most powerful step you can take. It means you still care. It means part of you is fighting for the connection you once had. The journey back to each other isn't always easy, no, but it is possible. It starts with understanding what's really going on beneath the surface. We're going to walk through this together. First, by identifying the signs of this distance. Then, understanding the reasons it happens. And finally, by laying out a clear path to help you find your way back to each other. So, if you're feeling that quiet ache of disconnection, stay with me. This is where we start building the bridge. Before you can fix a crack, you have to know where it is. Emotional detachment rarely shows up as a big explosion. It's more like a series of small, subtle shifts. These are the quiet red flags that are easy to brush off. But when you see them together, they paint a clear picture of a relationship in trouble. Let's look at what these signs are. Sign number 1. Conversations start to vanish. Think about the last few conversations you've had. Were they mostly about logistics? Like, did you pay the bill? Who's getting the kids? What's for dinner? When communication shrinks to just the business of running a shared life, it's a major sign of detachment. The talks about your hopes, your fears, and your day-to-day frustrations just stop happening. It's not just that the deep talks are gone, it's that they're actively avoided. You might try to bring up your feelings or the relationship, only to get a short, non-committal answer, a quick subject change, or the classic, "I'm too tired for this right now." After a while, you might stop trying because it feels like too much effort for too much pain. This creates a feedback loop of silence. The less you talk, the less you have to talk about, and the wider the gap gets. It's a slow fade from soulmates to just housemates. Sign number 2, the roommate syndrome. This is, maybe, the most common feeling when emotional detachment settles in. You share a space, a bed, and a life, but the spark is gone. It feels like you're two people living parallel lives, under the same roof. Those little rituals of connection, like having coffee together in the morning or taking a walk after dinner, they've been replaced by both of you retreating to separate corners with your phones. Now, this isn't just the normal ebb and flow of a long-term relationship. It's a constant state of coexisting instead of connecting. You might realize you know less and less about your partner's inner world. Their work stress, their small wins, what's making them laugh, or what's keeping them up at night. They might spend more time on hobbies or work that don't involve you, using them as an escape from the emotional void at home. Feeling lonely inside your own relationship is a painful sign that the intimacy that held you together has worn away. Sign number 3, intimacy disappears. And I don't just mean sex, although a drop in sexual interest is a very common sign. I mean the whole spectrum of physical affection that really keeps a relationship alive. Think about it. The spontaneous hugs in the kitchen, holding hands while you walk, a comforting touch on the arm, or even just a kiss goodnight. When a partner starts to pull away emotionally, well, they almost always pull away physically too. This lack of touch, it becomes a real barrier between you. Every time you try for a hug and they seem stiff, or you reach for their hand and they pull away, the wall just gets a little higher, doesn't it? At first, it's subtle. But over time, these small rejections, they teach you to stop trying. And eventually, the physical space between you starts to mirror that emotional space. Intimacy is a language, and when it goes silent, well, that's a clear sign. The emotional conversation has stopped. Sign number 4, the fighting stops. This one might seem a little backward, right? You'd think, hey, we're not fighting anymore, things must be getting better. But often, the opposite is true. While constant fighting is certainly destructive, no fighting at all can actually signal something much more dangerous. Apathy. It can mean that one or both of you is so disengaged, so completely checked out, that you don't even have the energy to fight for the relationship anymore. Think about it. Fighting, even when it's painful, is a sign that you both still care enough to disagree. You're invested enough to state your needs and try to solve a problem. When that stops, it can mean you've given up. You've accepted the disconnection because, honestly, it's easier than the hard emotional work of a real conflict. You choose silence over struggle. And this isn't the peace of a healthy resolution. It's the quiet of a battlefield after the war is lost and everyone's gone home. Sign number 5, emotional support is outsourced. When your partner is stressed, happy, or needs to talk, where do they go? In a truly connected relationship, you're each other's main source of support. But when detachment takes root, well, you might start to notice your partner turning to friends, family, or even coworkers for that emotional connection they're just not getting at home anymore. You might hear about their big promotion from a friend, or find out they're going through something really tough long after they've already told someone else. Now, this isn't about them having a healthy support system. That's super important for everyone, of course. This is about a consistent pattern, where you're always the very last to know. It's a pretty clear sign that the emotional trust and safety in your partnership are, well, they're gone. They're looking for support elsewhere because they feel they just can't get it from you. And that, unfortunately, leaves you on the outside looking in. All right, sign number 6 then, a wall of indifference. Empathy. It's the glue that holds a connection together. It's that ability to truly feel with your partner. A classic sign of detachment is when that empathy just starts to fade. You might share something you're really excited about, and their reaction is, well, lukewarm. You might say you're sad or hurt, and they seem indifferent, or even annoyed. Now, this isn't always malicious. A detached partner often feels numb or overwhelmed themselves, so they just don't have the capacity to engage with your feelings. But on your end, it feels like they just don't care. This wall of indifference, it's incredibly painful and really isolating. It makes you feel unseen, like your emotions simply don't matter. It's a deep disconnection that goes beyond a lack of conversation. It's a lack of a shared emotional world. Recognizing these signs can be tough, for sure, but remember, seeing them isn't a final judgment on your relationship, not at all. It's the first step that lets you stop wondering what's wrong and start asking why it's happening. And that's exactly where we're going next. Knowing the signs of emotional detachment is one thing, but understanding why it's happening is really the key to figuring out how to move forward. See, detachment is almost always a symptom, not the root problem. It's a wall someone builds to protect themselves from something they feel they just can't handle. So let's look at a few common reasons that wall gets built. First up, we're looking at what I call echoes of the past, things like trauma and attachment styles. Our past has a huge impact on our present relationships. For a lot of people, pulling away emotionally is a coping skill they learned a long time ago. If someone grew up in a home where showing emotion was seen as a weakness, or was even punished, they learned to bottle up their feelings just to survive. As an adult, they might unconsciously see emotional intimacy as, risky or dangerous. This is tied to what psychologists call attachment styles. Someone with an avoidant attachment style, for instance, often learned early on that they couldn't count on others for emotional support. So they grow up valuing independence above all else. In a relationship, when things get too emotional, or their partner needs a lot of reassurance, their old programming just kicks right in. They pull away, not because they don't care, but because deep down, closeness feels threatening. Their detachment, it's really an old, subconscious attempt to stay safe. Our second cause? It's the weight of the world. Think external stress and burnout. Sometimes, the problem isn't inside the relationship at all. It's coming from the outside. The world asks a lot of us. Intense work pressure, money worries, caring for aging parents, or the relentless stress of raising a family. All of that can really drain a person's emotional battery. When someone is chronically stressed or completely burned out, their ability to engage emotionally just plummets. Think of your emotional energy like a phone battery. If work and other obligations drain that battery to, say, 1% every single day, there's just nothing left to give when they get home. Your partner's withdrawal might not be about you at all. It could be a sign that they're totally overwhelmed and just in self-preservation mode. They retreat into easier activities, like scrolling on their phone or watching TV, because they don't have the energy for the vulnerability that real connection demands. Their detachment, it's simply a sign of depletion. Our minds and bodies, they're directly connected to our emotions. Unmanaged mental health conditions, things like depression and anxiety, they're really huge contributors to emotional detachment. Depression, for example, it can make a person feel numb and lose interest in things and even people they once loved. And anxiety? That can make emotional vulnerability feel absolutely terrifying. It leads someone to pull away, just to avoid any possible conflict, Then, on top of that, some medications can actually have side effects that dull emotional responses. And chronic pain, or even other health problems, they can also take up so much of a person's focus that there's just little energy left for their partner. So in these cases, the distance you're feeling, it's often a symptom of a larger health battle your partner is fighting, often in silence. Their withdrawal, it's a clear sign they're struggling with something that has absolutely nothing to do with their love for you. Cause number 4, a pattern of unresolved conflict. Relationships need trust and emotional safety to thrive. When that foundation gets cracked by unresolved conflicts, resentment builds up, and detachment often follows. This could be from a major betrayal, like an affair, which makes emotional openness feel impossible. But more often, it's the result of 1,000 small cuts, things like lingering arguments, constant criticism, and needs that are never quite met. This often creates a toxic cycle known as the pursuer-distancer dynamic. So one partner feels that distance and anxiously pursues the other, asking what's wrong, or maybe even demanding to talk. The other partner, they feel pressured and attacked, so they distance themselves by shutting down even more. It's a tricky cycle. The pursuer's anxiety fuels the distancer's withdrawal, and that withdrawal, in turn, fuels the pursuer's anxiety. Both partners get trapped in this painful dance, where their attempts to fix the problem only make it worse. Essentially, that detachment becomes a defense against what feels like constant pressure. Now, understanding these causes isn't about making excuses, okay? It's really about shifting your perspective from hurt and anger to compassion and curiosity. It helps you see the detachment not as a personal attack, but as a signal that something deeper is going on. And from that place of understanding, you can start to find the right way to repair that connection. If this is hitting home for you and you're getting some value from understanding these dynamics, I'd really love it if you'd subscribe to the channel. We explore the ins and outs of relationships every single week to help you build stronger connections. Your support, truly, helps us keep making content just like this. Now, let's move from the why to the what's next. Recognizing the signs and understanding the causes. That's the first part. Now we get to the healing. This isn't about a quick fix or some magic phrase that will solve everything. Reconnecting? It's a process that takes patience, courage, and real effort. But it all starts with one person being brave enough to take that first step. So here's an action plan to start building that bridge back to each other. That silence, it's become the elephant in the room. And the first step, well, it's to gently point it out. But how you start this conversation, that's everything. I mean, if you start with accusations like, "You're so distant," or "You never talk to me anymore," you'll immediately put your partner on the defensive. And they'll just pull away even more. Instead, you've got to approach this with I statements. This frames the problem around your feelings, which are undeniable, rather than around their actions, which, well, those can always be argued. First, pick the right time and place. Seriously, don't ambush them right when they get home from a stressful day. Instead, ask them, "When would be a good time to talk about something that's on my mind?" Find a calm, private moment, one without distractions. Then, try starting the conversation like this. "Lately, I've been feeling a little disconnected from you, and I really miss us. It kind of feels like we're just roommates, and that makes me feel lonely. I want to understand how things have been for you, and I'd love to find a way for us to feel close again." So, notice the formula here. First, you want to start with, I feel lonely, or I feel disconnected. Then, state your desire positively. Something like, I miss you, or I want to feel closer. Next, be curious, not accusatory. You could say, I want to understand how you're feeling. And finally, frame it as a team effort. Ask, how can we feel closer? The goal here isn't to solve everything in one conversation, okay? It's just to open a door that's been closed. It's about making it safe for your partner to share what's going on with them, without being afraid of blame. Remember to listen more than you talk. Be patient, because this one conversation, if you handle it with gentleness, can really be the turning point. It's easy to focus on what your partner is doing wrong, but it's essential to look at your own role in the dynamic. This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about owning your side of the street. Ask yourself some honest questions. First, how have I been part of the pursuer-distancer cycle? Have my attempts to connect come across as anxious or critical? Or have I been so focused on my own needs that I haven't made space for theirs? Next, have I been making assumptions? Have I just decided my partner doesn't care, or have I genuinely tried to understand the pressures they might be under? And finally, am I taking care of my own well-being, or have I made my partner my only source of happiness? Focusing on your own self-care and friendships can take a lot of pressure off the relationship and make you a calmer, more secure partner. Understanding your own attachment style is helpful here too. If you tend to be anxious, you might pursue connection in a way that feels overwhelming to your partner. Recognizing that can help you manage your anxiety and approach them in a calmer way, and that, in turn, makes them feel safer to connect. Taking responsibility for your actions is one of the most powerful things you can do, because it's the only part of this you have 100% control over. You can't just talk your way back to connection. You have to live your way back. Intimacy, It's often rebuilt in hundreds of small, shared moments. The goal here is to intentionally bring back positive, low-pressure experiences into your life together. Now, this doesn't mean you have to book an expensive vacation to fix everything. It's about small, consistent efforts to create new, positive memories. First, let's talk about scheduling micro-dates. You don't need a whole date night, no, start smaller. Maybe a 20-minute walk together after dinner, with a no phones rule, or a shared cup of coffee in the morning before the day gets crazy. These little moments of connection are like deposits into your relationship's emotional bank account, you know? Next, bring back the fun. What did you two used to do that made you laugh? Seriously. Did you play a board game? Go to a comedy show? Or try a new recipe? Laughter, it's a powerful antidote to distance. So bring back activities that are just for fun, with no agenda other than enjoying each other's company. And finally, create some shared goals. Working on something together, as a team, can be a really powerful way to bond. This could be anything from planning a small weekend trip to tackling a home improvement project or even starting a new hobby together, like a cooking class. The act of working together, well, it really reminds you that you're a team. The key here, though, is being intentional. You really have to consciously prioritize this time together and protect it from all the other things demanding your attention. To rebuild emotional intimacy, you've really got to relearn how to speak its language. And this means two things, essentially: expressing your own emotions in a vulnerable way and listening to your partner with real empathy. So first up, practice appreciation. The quickest way to reverse a cycle of criticism is to start a cycle of appreciation. Try to make a real effort to catch your partner doing something right, no matter how small. Things like, "Thank you for making coffee," or "I really appreciate you taking out the trash." Even, "I saw how patient you were with the kids today, and it was amazing to see." This kind of positive feedback really makes your partner feel seen and valued. Next, learn to be a better listener. Because when your partner does start to open up, how you respond is, honestly, critical. So practice active listening. That means putting your phone away, making eye contact, and really hearing them without just planning your reply. Validate their feelings, even if you don't agree with their point of view. Okay. A simple, "That sounds really stressful," or "I can see why you'd feel that way," can make a huge, huge difference. It just shows them that you're a safe person to talk to. Sometimes, the patterns of disconnection are just too deep, or the issues are simply too complex to handle on your own. There's actually so much strength in asking for professional help. A good couples therapist, they can provide a neutral, safe space to really work through these dynamics. Going to therapy, it isn't a sign of failure at all. It's a true sign of commitment. A therapist, well, they can help you with a few key things. For example, they can help you identify and break that pursuer-distancer cycle. They can also help you translate your feelings for each other in a way you can both truly understand. They can help heal old wounds that might be poisoning your present. Plus, you'll learn practical skills for communication and conflict. Now, what if your partner isn't willing to go? Well, going to therapy on your own can still be incredibly helpful, believe it or not. It can give you the tools to manage your own emotions, to set healthy boundaries, and to show up in the relationship in a much more constructive way. And you know what? That can often change the entire dynamic, all by itself. Feeling emotionally detached from your partner can be one of the loneliest feelings in the world. It's a quiet crisis that can leave you feeling like strangers in your own home. But this distance is rarely born from a lack of love. More often, it's a symptom of stress, past hurts, unspoken fears, or just life getting in the way. It's a defense mechanism, a wall built to protect a vulnerable heart. We've walked through the signs to look for, the deeper causes, and most importantly, a hopeful and practical path forward. It's a path that starts with one gentle, honest conversation. It involves looking inward, rebuilding your foundation one shared moment at a time, and, well, relearning the language of appreciation and empathy. Remember, the goal isn't to go back to the way things were. Relationships are supposed to change. The goal is to move forward into a new chapter, one that's stronger and more resilient because you weathered this storm together. The very fact that you're here, seeking answers, shows how much you value your connection. That feeling of disconnect is painful, because the connection itself means something to you. Bridging this gap takes courage, patience, and a whole lot of faith in each other. But you're not powerless. You can be the one to light the first candle in the dark. You can take the first step onto that bridge. And when you do, you create an invitation for your partner to take a step toward you. The journey from roommates back to soulmates begins with that single hopeful step. You can do this. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Which of these signs or causes resonated with you the most? Sharing your experience can be healing, and it can also make someone else feel a little less alone. Thank you for spending this time with me.